Randy and Leslie, the podcast where we delve into the heart of what truly matters, our families. Healthy families make healthy societies. I'm Randy.
And I'm Leslie. We're diving deep into the powerful insights of Dr. Randy's groundbreaking book, The Family Legacy: Shaping Culture from the Inside Out.
Hear inspiring stories and strategies to transform your family. We'll explore topics like communication, forgiveness, healing, parenting, marriage. We'll cover it all.
We'll have provoking conversations with experts, coaches, and real-life families who are benefiting from intentional family building.
This podcast isn't just about theories, it's about tools that you can implement today.
We all come from families, so this podcast is for you.
Join us on this incredible family journey. Subscribe now as we learn to do family as God designed.
Transforming families one episode at a time. Remember, whoever wins the family wins the culture in the end. Let's go. Hi there.
Hi.
Welcome to Transforming Families with Randy and Leslie. I'm Leslie.
And I'm Randy.
Great to be with you guys today. We have been in a series around how to create a healthy family culture, and we're going to continue that discussion today. And this time we're going to talk around one of our favorite life verses, which is Romans 8:28. And we're going to be talking about how do we actually govern our thoughts, and how do we find the good in the good, the bad, and the ugly of life.
Yeah, this again is one of our EQ exercises in the first protocol in the book and workbook called the Emotional Intelligence Protocol. And the purpose of that protocol, again, is to really how to walk in the Spirit. How do I actually, not just conceptually or ideas, like, oh, I understand what that scripture is, but how do I apply it with precision and with effectiveness? And that's what a tool is. And so this tool that we call Fact Story is a profound tool because it really encapsulates what transformation is all about, right? If you're a family, we know this right now. Families are hurting. And hurting can be a really broad term. Give some examples. Families are hurting.
Well, we know the divorce rate for starters is just as high in the Christian community as it is in the secular. So you've got broken families, broken relationships, a lot of hurt feelings, a lot of stories that get attached to something. Divorce is a great example around this tool. A divorce happens, that's a fact. But the stories that come out of that in an unhealed state have devastating effects. Moms leave or daddies leave, or there's something wrong with me, or it's
never safe at home.
Yeah.
There's always arguing, and that's how it's going to be. Yeah, there's infidelity, there's abuse. The statistics are pretty clear on this around physical abuse, sexual abuse, certainly emotional abuse as fuses run short and tempers run high, and there's a lot of yelling or screaming or fighting going on in a home that makes it not safe. And then add onto that things like addiction of all sorts, pornography, alcohol, drugs, and you've got a cocktail for a real mess and a real place where families are hurt. And so one of the ways, in fact, my son, and he's got quite a story we're going to hear on an upcoming podcast. He says that this tool is probably the number one tool that has brought healing to him. He made some choices. I'll let him tell his own story, but he was far from God and he was hurting and probably should have died, he says, about 4,000 times, which is really remarkable. God kept him alive. But in his journey back, he talks about this tool, re-looking at the facts in his life and coming into agreement with the story that God has about what was going on instead of what he had. And we're going to break this down in a little bit, but we teach this along with our other tools in our family school, the family school. And you can find that at thefamilyreformationproject.com. And our families are hurting. And part of that is because they have not, either knowingly or unknowingly, what they have done rather is choose to believe a story around the circumstances in their lives that is keeping them hurt, keeping them in unforgiveness, keeping them stuck, keeping them wounded. And so I want to read this quick quote by Matt Walsh. In fact, honey, would you read it? Matt Walsh, who, look him up. He's a powerful cultural influencer. Here's what he has to say.
He said, if there's any saving our civilization at this point, and I think there is, it will be saved through the formation and preservation of strong, loving families. That is the only way forward.
Yeah, that's a powerful quote. And we see that in, church study results right now too, that, churches are hurting because families are hurting, and healthy churches are growing because healthy families are growing. And so if, I want to give you out of the book, if you've got the book, you'll know this. If you don't, you should get it in the digital bundle, because this really is the core essential piece. And it's important when we go to solve a problem. We say families are hurting. Well, duh. But what's the problem? It's easy to do even what we've done and talk about all the fruit of the problems and how it's manifesting. But what is really the core issue that we can solve? And after a lot of research and prayer and writing, in a nutshell, in the book, I described that it really is three things. It's identity drift. We don't know who we are by God's design, and we don't know why we're here. Secondly, it is the failure to self-govern well. And that's where we're diving into today, is this second aspect of emotional intelligence. Really, it's walking by the Spirit, and it's really the solution to the problem in our families, is how do we self-govern? Part of that is, how do we take in what happens in life, and how do we choose, that's important, to think about it? Because our feelings come from our thoughts. Our behavior comes from our thinking. And if our thinking is off, and when I mean off, I mean it doesn't agree with God, then our behaving and our feeling and are going to be off of God's design. And when that happens in a family, people get hurt.
That's true.
So the third part of the problem that we address in the book is the choice to not steward the family as God designed. And that is a choice. We make it knowingly or unknowingly, but it's a choice. And so in this middle area of the problem, this failure to self-govern well, we have a number of tools in the book to address personal responsibility. In other words, what's my part in being able to partner with God and be able to think like He thinks, so I am actually perceiving life. Talk to us for a minute, honey, about how life flows from us.
Sure. I mean, the scripture is pretty clear. Proverbs 4:23 and 23:7 talk about that we are being transformed by the renewing of our mind, and that it's from the heart that flow the issues of life. As a man thinketh in his heart, right? Your soul, your mind, your will, your emotions. It's as you think in there that life flows from us. We say this often, that life flows from us, not to us.
That's correct.
And I want to pepper this, and we're going to get into what this fact story tool is in a moment. But when we're children in particular, there are things that happen to us where we are actually victims to what happens to us in our families when we're children. We don't have any control over that. But what happens is, let's use the issue of divorce. If there is a divorce, and I'm this little girl, and my experience thus far has been, I've just seen a lot of conflict in my family. My parents were fighting all the time, and I was scared, and I would run off to my room, and they were wrapped up in their own stuff, and nobody ever came and told me what was going on. And so in my little mind, I'm going to take the fact, this ongoing arguing, and I've got to make it mean something.
Correct.
That's the way human beings are designed. Randy's going to talk a little bit more about the realm of fact story, but we as human beings, we must make meaning out of the things that happen in life. So if I'm this little kid and this is what's going on and nobody's talking to me, I'm very open and susceptible to the story that I attach to the fact of, say, this arguing. And it might be that, God doesn't God doesn't care about me. Like, why did God put me in this family? Or mommies aren't safe, or daddies aren't safe, or gosh, if it's a little kid, and oftentimes the argument has been about them, they'll come up with a story that, gosh, there's something wrong with me because they're always fighting about me. And the problem with this is that thinking then, especially in heightened times of emotion,
Right.
our body is actually, it starts to shake, waiting for information. It's waiting. Our DNA is waiting for that story. And once that story comes in and we make an agreement with it, knowingly or unknowingly, and usually it's unknowingly when we're children, it gets locked in to our thinking. And then we go out into life and we don't know we're doing this, because if you've listened to prior episodes, 95 up to 95% of our thinking is happening at a subconscious level. So this story that I made around mom and dad arguing that there was something wrong with me, I'm going to go then out into life, and I'm constantly looking for evidence to support that, what is now a belief system in my heart, that there's something inherently wrong with me. And so I'm going to filter everything, every experience moving forward from this lens that there's something wrong with me. And so what happens is I reinforce that story over and over and over. The first time a kid rejects me on the playground, or I go, I'm in higher education and friends don't accept me, or I get passive for a promotion at work. It is creating then what we call a stronghold in our thinking. I know that was a little bit much. Pick it up from here, babe.
No, it's really good. And it's hard not to go all the way through because we see this and we work this tool in real time. And those we teach, our family coaches, even our kids, we're familiar with this tool because of its power. It really is Romans 12:2, right? We are transformed by the renewing of our minds so that we can test and prove the good, pleasing, perfect will of God. And especially this, 2 Corinthians 10, verses 3-5. And I'm just going to read it. For though we live in the world, we don't wage war as the world does. The weapons we fight with are not the weapons of this world. On the contrary, they have divine power to demolish strongholds. Those ingrained patterns of thinking are the strongholds. And this next verse 5 demonstrates that. We demolish arguments and every pretension or thinking, every thought that sets itself up against the knowledge of God, God's way of thinking. And we take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ.
So
I tell you, the power in this scripture is profound. And it's so easy just to think, okay, yeah, I believe that. I agree with it. And to never put it into practice. This tool that we're going to give you, and we don't have time to do the whole thing, but we're going to give you the pieces. If you want it, again, get the material. But this tool will immediately help you begin to take thoughts captive. In other words, you'll recognize, hey, wait a minute, that story doesn't sound right based on the God I know and the scripture. And what is the right way to think about this, and how to go to God and to get the right story, and how to renew or transform our thinking as a result. So here's the very quick breakdown. We live in a number of realms. I want to talk about two of them right now: the realm of fact and the realm of story. What's a fact? What's the definition of it? You open up the dictionary, what's it going to say?
A fact is something that happens. It's measurable. It's objective. Today happens to be.
It's verifiable.
It's verifiable. Whatever today is, I don't actually know.
Yeah, whatever. Anyway,
I was born a female. Randy was born a male. That is a fact.
And it's verifiable. It's objective. It's measurable. Okay. Now, in the same way, if you open up the dictionary and look at the definition for story, what's a story?
A story is just that. It is something it's a story that you connect to the facts that happen in life.
It's a perspective. It's an opinion. It's an interpretation of the facts based on now subjective, right? It's a person's experience. I promise you right now, in the United States of America, there are the same facts.
Yeah.
If you could actually get to them, which is hard to do these days, But there's the facts, right? The stock market is what it is. The inflation rate is what it is. The military is what it is, and the world events. There's a factual part of it that is measurable and it's objective. But I promise you this: there are millions, dare I say, even billions of stories that differ around the same fact set.
That's right.
Based on the opinions and the perspectives of the individual people.
So what's so critical and crucial about this, and this is why it's a transformation, it's a culture transformation tool, is that the thinking, the stories, as Randy gets into this tool, must agree with God. We do a lot of marriage coaching, and two people will come to a marriage coaching and they have deep down inside, based on their own experiences, their own life knowledge, they have a belief system of how marriage is supposed to be. And we have a couple of our kids are multicultural. They come from two completely different cultures. And when they first got married, they thought, oh, we've got, this conflict because the way this culture looks at marriage is so different than the way this culture looks at marriage. And so what was important in their formation in their early married days was, what's God's culture?
Yeah.
What does God say marriage is? And so this tool helps us get there.
So, and it's so important, because whatever we choose to believe, we end up creating.
That's right.
That's what it says right in Proverbs 4:23 and 23:7. So the story we choose really matters. And here's where a lot of people, I was for a lot of years, are asleep at the wheel. They're passive, and they don't intentionally choose what definitions to give to what's going on. And so it's very easy to pick a story like, well, I'm a victim, or pick a story like, well, the schools must be right about all this gender identity stuff because everybody's teaching it. Or, it's so easy to passively just agree with a story. And when it does not agree with God, every time something built on a lie is going to crash and it falls. So in a moment, we're going to give you this tool, but we want to give you a couple examples first before we just give it to you. So why don't we go to a break first quick? Let's go to a break, and you can find out how to get these tools. And then we're going to come back. We're going to give you a couple of stories to illustrate, and then we're going to just lay out the tool that you can put into practice with your family and be able to extract the good out of the good, bad, and ugly of life and be transformed. We'll be right back. Introducing the Family Digital Bundle, a powerful collection designed to transform your family's journey towards healing, growth, and thriving.
At the heart of this bundle is the best-selling book and workbook, The Family Legacy: Shaping Culture from the Inside Out, written by Dr. Randall Bixby.
With insightful wisdom and practical advice, these resources offer a roadmap for building a strong family legacy that shapes the culture of generations to come.
But that's not all. Our Family Digital Bundle includes an e-course, over 9 hours of how-to videos, equipping you with practical tools and expert guidance to help your family.
Imagine your family, a place where love, growth, and connection come together. Isn't it time to build a better family? If not now, when?
Invest in your family. Order the Family Digital Bundle today by clicking the link below or visit our website, thefamilyreformationproject.com. Hi, welcome back, guys. We're going to give you just a couple of short stories in our own life that illustrate this fact story. So for me, clearly anybody that's got two eyeballs can see that I was born female. That is a fact. And in my family of origin, the stories that were fed to me, the things that I heard, the things that I witnessed in my home of origin, was that being born a girl was not a good thing. The messaging was that women were less than, that they were put on earth strictly to serve the needs of men. And it went on. And my father, bless his heart, was a true true blue misogynist, and he really did believe in his heart that women were less than. And so I grew up believing that. That was my story. And my testimony, if some of you have heard it, it created a lot of wreckage for me. I disqualified myself from a lot of things in life. And it wasn't until I learned this stuff and I was able to go, wait a minute. The fact is I was born a girl, but what does God say about that? And God says that's the good thing.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful thing. As a matter of fact, women in the Bible, the same word that's used to describe a woman in the Bible, the word is Ezer, E-Z-E-R. It's the same word to describe the Holy Spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, wow. Like, that's pretty amazing. And so changing my story absolutely transformed my life. When I got into the truth of my identity, it unlocked, it completely rewrote my prior story and rewrote my future story.
You got to share this part. And woman was, of course,
the final creation,
God's masterpiece. Yeah, after he finished filming, he's like, "Whew, that's all good. It's all good, and I'm gonna rest." Awesome. So I'm gonna give you another example from my life, and then lay the tool out. So I'm 7 years old as a little boy, and I'm playing ice hockey, and I just had a gift for it. And I was playing goalie, the guy that stands in the net and tries to keep the puck out of the net. And when I would perform well by keeping the puck out and we would win, people would clap. And my dad would be up in the stands, and my dad's one of my heroes. I just love him to pieces. He's amazing. And he would give me, he'd pump his fist, and and I saw this out of the corner of my eye, and I was just like, oh, wow. If I perform well, I get accepted. I get celebrated. I get valued. This is how life works. I didn't know I was thinking that and deciding what to believe about performing well, but I did. And likewise, when I would perform poorly, at 7, you just have, attention deficit, something. And, I let an easy puck go by me and go in the net. And I'd look up and, I wouldn't get that same reaction. I'd get, some hands just kind of thrown at me, or just like, oh, and, ooh. And in my little mind, it was like, okay, I get how life works. Here's the story. You perform well, you get celebrated and you get friends. You perform bad and you get rejected, you get ignored, and it feels terrible. And I didn't know I was doing it, but that locked in because it was really emotional for me at 7, like Leslie was saying. And I didn't learn this for many years, 24 years or something later. Before I learned this, that I chose to put on a set of glasses that were like, your worth is based on your performance. Mm-hmm. And I was wearing them all the time. I saw everything in the world through those lenses, but I didn't know I had them on.
Yeah.
And so I went to school, and I had to be the best at something, at hockey or football. And I was in a lot of ways. And I had to be the best at grades. So I got straight A's until my junior year in high school. And when I didn't. And so I continued to reinforce through my whole life, if you perform well, things go well for you, and you get accepted and you get celebrated and you have but if you perform bad, you'll be rejected, you'll be alone, you'll be left behind. And so when I would fail, and all of us fail, that's part of life. When I would fail, I'd be miserable. I would just really get into self-hate, depression. Like it wasn't ever soon enough before I would have another opportunity to try to perform better, to erase that bad taste in my mouth.
Right. And the problem here, though, is once you make an agreement with that story that disagrees with God, it gets locked in and it becomes an ingrained pattern of thinking, which can turn into a stronghold in our lives.
And that sounds like our verse, right, in Corinthians, that our weapons are not carnal, they're not worldly, but they're mighty to pull down these strongholds, to pull down these ways of thinking. God, I tell you, what that leads to is perfectionism and people pleasing, what's called the fear of man, which is a snare. I don't know if you know what a snare is, but the more you try to get away from it, the more it grabs you and restricts you. And so it was a real mess. And it wasn't until I finally, with God's love, understood, wait a minute, That's not how God sees me. God doesn't see my performance that way. He doesn't see my value that way. That's all a lie. And then I could choose, and I did. I chose to say, you know what? I'm just valuable because I'm his son and he loves me, and that's enough. And all of these beliefs, all these lenses I started taking off. I'm not enough lens and the try harder lens. And of course, this happened over years, and they didn't all come off immediately. But as I continued to lean into the truth through this tool. So the tool basically goes like this: a fact happens, and in that moment, sometimes in an instant, we pick a story.
That's true.
And our kids pick them without even realizing it. So as a parent, we want to make sure that there is not um, space left there for the child to simply come up with their own story, because they're going to come up with a story that's probably a lie. And it's not to control them, but it's to lead them to Jesus and to the truth. With that abuse, what's happening? With that rejection on the playground, what's the story? It isn't talking about your value, son, daughter. That's what another person's view is for their own reasons. You actually, the story with that is even Jesus was rejected and he was valuable. And so this is critical for parenting. It's critical for marriage. You know, when there's a lot of, when a marriage breaks down, there's a lot of assuming
Oh, yes.
and
Indeed.
ascribing of ill motives. And, well, I know why you did that, and it's a terrible story.
Yeah.
Well, and a spouse would say, that is not true. Oh, yes, it is. I know it is. Well, here's the truth. It's true in the eye of the beholder, not the other person. And that's because of their own belief system many times.
So we just, this tool again, this can be used in marriage. It certainly is so crucial with your children, and it teaches your kids how to self-govern. It teaches them to go to God, to come to you, but to go to God and to pick a good story with, because life in this world, we will have trouble.
I'll give you a couple more quick and we'll be done. The tool, step by steps in our material, but we coach a lot of people, families, executives, and one very common belief system, one of these strongholds, is a fear of failure. But when we lean into that with our clients, it goes down a road usually, well, if I fail, then I'm ashamed. Okay, if I'm ashamed, I fail and I'm ashamed, then I'm rejected. Well, if I'm ashamed and rejected, then I'm alone. Well, if I'm ashamed and alone, and it gets to be apocalyptic. And it should, and so no wonder people don't want to try new things or experiment or risk, or even in a family, you know, whether you're little as a child or an adult, we have all these restrictions on our lives about what we think is possible based on this belief system that, oh no, if I fail, it's over. Well, how does God see failure? He sees it as a real good teaching opportunity, frankly, and an opportunity to get right, to learn, to grow. In fact, I chose, when I saw this one, to redefine failure as a brilliant teacher. I don't like to fail, but I'm going to fail because I'm going to risk greatly. I'm going to try to innovate and try, right? Because that's how we're made. And I want to grow. And so do you probably, or you wouldn't be listening to this podcast. And so when that happens, understand this, that unless you change your story, unless you choose the story that agrees with God, you're going to stay limited, stay stuck, stay afraid of failure, stay living small. And we just want you to know, we are here cheering you on. And one of the biggest steps you can take forward in finding the good out of the good, bad, and ugly, and we've had our share of ugly in our lives, and we found the good primarily through this tool, going to the Lord and saying, what do you see here? How do you think about what happened? And changing our thinking and our story to agree with God. Listen, I hope that you will get this material. I hope that you'll try and not try. I hope that you'll use, try is a bad word in our house. If you'll use this tool and see if you don't take thoughts captive and make them submit to Christ, so that now you begin to overcome and see new victories in your life. Anything else you want to add?
That's it.
All right. That's it for this episode. Remember, whoever wins the family
Wins the culture in the end.
See you next time. And that wraps up another inspiring episode of Transforming Families with Randy and Leslie. We hope that today's conversation has left you feeling empowered and equipped to take action.
Remember, transforming families begins with transforming ourselves. Let's be intentional, loving, and persevere. You're not alone. We're right here with you.
We believe Proverbs 24:3. Wise people are builders. They build families, businesses, and communities. Through intelligence and insight, their enterprises are established and endure.
Thanks for joining us today. We encourage you to stay connected with us on social media, join our email list, and learn more about our resources and classes at the Family School by visiting thefamilyreformationproject.com.
Remember to subscribe, share with your loved ones, and spread the word about transforming families. We'll see you on our next episode. And remember, whoever wins the family wins the culture in the end.